What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Core Use Bloody History. We're continuing with Thomas Beckham and his testimony before the grand jury in the Clay Shaw trial. So we're going to pick up right where we left off. Mr. Beckham, could I see that picture of you with the high collar on again? Please. Yes. Could I see the other credentials again that show the ones Jack Martin got for you? Do you mind? No. Oh, here is Dr. Strange's name, phone number, and all. Do you have other credentials in other pockets? My brother has them. He is downstairs. Send down for them, will you, please? Well, I better ask for them. He might hide it from you. He's my younger brother. He don't know. Mr. Burns asked, why do you think he might hide it from us? I don't know. My brother thinks you're kind of doing me wrong. A juror then asked, I was curious about one card you showed us from an airline. Yes, they gave a discount to clergymen when you fly. Is it a charge? No. Would you show me the other papers you have in the folder? Do you have any other credentials? No. Now let me get back all my papers so I will know where they are at. Now, you were in the tie shop on Royal Street, is that correct? Yes. Some man walked up to you. No, I was in the tie shop. I had been around the corner to find out how I could find this other man that you all talked to. And I said, do you know me? That is the first thing I said. The man looked at me and said, no. I said, I'm Thomas Beckham, the one who was subpoenaed by the DA. And I said, how am I involved in this? He said, I don't know, but they got me in it. And I said, somebody has got to know something. You must know. So then I got to figuring maybe he don't know or want to tell me because he's involved, see? So I left. I went right around the corner and there's a tie shop there, So I went in there and I was talking to this lady and looking at some ties and stuff. So she was kidding around. It was in the evening. So anyway, I left and I walked right down Royal toward Canal and I turned. But in the meantime, while I was in there, this guy went in. Went in where? The tie shop. He walked in while I was there, but he didn't say nothing to me. He says hi to her and everything and said, how's your big dog? And he said something, I don't know. And I had to leave and I left and walked up Royal and turned on Canal. And a few minutes later, he come running down the street and said, hey, are you that guy Mr. Garrison subpoenaed? And I said, yes. And he said, I got some information for you. I said, what do you mean information? And he told me. Like what? Well, he said that he knew this guy Clay Shaw and this other guy, and it didn't dawn on me then. How did he say he knew this? I don't remember exactly how he said it. So then he said, I got to go to the restroom. I wonder where there is a restroom. And I thought, this guy, so I said, well, let's go to the Roosevelt. One thing led to another, and he said he wanted to be dropped off somewhere. And I met a friend of mine, Jim White, and Jim, we picked up his wife, who I knew a long time. He worked at the Roosevelt print shop. So Jim, his wife, and me got in the car. In whose car? In my car. I was parked. I don't know which street it was on, and we went to the, I dropped him off in the quarters, and he said, don't drop me off where anyone can see me. He didn't want some people down there to see him with me. First, I thought he was a lot of baloney, and then I said, listen, can I meet you at 2 o'clock? First, I said I would meet you at 11, and he said, that's too early. So I said, I have a lot of things to do, and I said, gosh, what time do you get up? And he said, I don't get up till late. So I said, okay, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the Sheraton Charles in the lobby. Remember, the Sheraton Charles is where Carrie Thornley works. And all this time, White and his wife was there, and they were hearing this conversation? Yes, I guess they were. They were sitting in the car. My brothers were in the car with me. Now you have White, his wife, yourself, this man who made the affidavit, and your brothers. Yes. How many of your brothers? I had Billy, me, and just this guy who claims he was a bodyguard, this Jim Hogger. And all of you were in a car. Yes. What kind of car do you have? It had a console in the middle. They were sitting up on the console. It was crowded. So anyway, 2 o'clock the following day, me and Jim Hogger met this guy. We went inside. They had like a bamboo-looking place in there, and Jim ordered a 7-Up, and this kid ordered something. And so we sat there and started telling me things like, well, I left the table. Telling what? About how he knew this, and he knew the people, about the district attorney. About, what did he say? About the affairs with these other people. He knew about that? Yes. And he knew another guy. He said something else I'll tell you happened. That will help you. He said, I saw this man, this attorney. Dean Andrews? Yes, he saw this guy on the street, and he said he walked up to him and said, what are you doing out? I thought you were in jail. And he said, I'm serving my time or something like that. So what else did he say? So I said one of them hung out at a tattoo shop or something in the quarter, and I got to use the phone. And I said, I'll be right back in the meantime, Jim. And the guy did all the talking. So I went to the phone and I walked right there. There's a desk right there by the phone, and I asked this man, can I get a secretarial service? And do you know where one is at? And he said, yes. And I called them, and I said, could you drop an affidavit for me on a guy? And she said, yes. And I said, fine. And I said, there's a place in the National Bank of Commerce building. And he said, let's go over there. So we went over there, and Jim, me, and that guy. Is Jim in the building now? No, he's back in Omaha. So we went up to this lady, and I said to the lady, please don't tell this to the district attorney, but this guy wants to tell you something. And I said, I want to get proof of this and a certified number and stuff. And this lady drew it up in the National Bank of Commerce building, and that's up today. And I was supposed to meet the guy again. He said he would have some information for me, and I never did meet him. How did he say he knew Clay Shaw? Wait, after he drew that up, he got a little worried, and he said, let's go to my attorney. And he said he helps my dad out on things. And I said, okay, it's all right with me. So we went up to the attorney's office. Let's see. Where was his attorney? St. Charles? I don't know exactly where his attorney was, but he was in, I remember he had beautiful law certificates, but they weren't his. They were somebody else's. They had been in the office before. Did he ever call his name? No, he was a young guy. What did he look like? Oh, I don't know, a little bit taller than me. What building was he in? I don't really know. Do you know the street? No, but I could find out. Was it a big office? No, as a matter of fact, the office building was, what does that mean? You know, you'd expect to walk into a nice office, and it was old fuddy-duddy building. You were in the NBC building. How far did you walk? Oh, no, we took a car. Was it in the business district? There was that place. I'm trying to remember exactly. Did you drive to it? Yes, ma'am. Do you drink? No, and I don't smoke. How is it that you have such a lapse of memory? I don't have a lapse of memory. Now you can remember how one of those kids ordered a 7-Up. Well, Jim was drinking a 7-Up, and I was drinking a 7-Up. For a sober person, you have the worst memory of anyone I ever met, to have as many degrees as you have. All that stuff was bearing down on my mind. That was all I was interested in, you know. Mr. Beckham, you said the certificates on the wall were not the certificates of the lawyer you went to see. How did you know that? Because we were sitting there, and he was sitting there like, Jim sat here, and I sat over there, and I said to him, oh, he had a bunch of certificates on the wall, and I said, oh, boy, you sure have the certificates? And he said, oh, they're not mine. Somebody else had the office before, and he died, I think he said. So he had them on the wall. He said, I just hadn't taken them down. I don't see no reason to. What was your purpose for going to the attorney? Well, this kid, after he gave me this affidavit, said, let me make a phone call. Then he went to the attorney. What happened after you went there? What did the boy tell him, and what did he tell the boy? The boy said to the attorney, he introduced me. He said, what can I do for you? And I said, well, this gentleman asked me to come up here, and you were his attorney. And he said, if this man turns this over to the grand jury, to when I'll be getting subpoenaed. And I said, I'm not going to use it. That's what I promised him, really. I said, well, I'm not going to use it. Mr. Alcock asks, have you seen the man who made the affidavit since then? No, I remember this boy said he forgot to go to the bank, and he asked the attorney to give him some money, and the attorney gave him some money. You keep referring to the boy. How old was he? That's where there was a mistake. About the date there, then I showed up to the boy, and he said this was not my date. He said, I forgot what date it said it actually was, because when he looked at it, and he said, the only mistake I can find is the date of my birth, and he told me, he said, I will change that. Did he give you any reason why he was giving you this information? No, never. Did you consider that a little odd, that he would just come to you on the street? Yes, first, like you say. Then when he said he wanted to go to the bathroom, I was thinking, you know, did he ever make any overtures or anything? No. He said he had a lot of queer friends. He said that he knew in the quarter, but he said I was just hanging around with them. What did he say in relation to his knowing Shaw and Bertrand? He said that he had been to a real estate agency or something, and this is how he found it out. I don't remember his words. All of this was happening so fast, I was trying to get it down, and I was thinking someone is framing me, and I wanted to get anything I could. This is why that's why I left and ran and tried to get a stenographer and get it typed. Your two brothers are outside the door, aren't they? Yes. You say they were in with you when you met this man. I think Freddie was and Billy was, but I don't think I told Freddie about the affidavit this time. I don't mean that, but they were with you and you got all in this crowded automobile. Yes, Freddie was. Is Freddie out there? He was when I came up, but he's probably running around the building. Can you give us a description of this man who executed this affidavit? Yes, he's a little bit taller than me. He said that Marcelo was his father. That's not a description. We want an answer. He comes to about right here, and he's slender, dark hair, fair complexion, 140 to 145 pounds. How did he comb his hair? Oh boy, I don't remember. Did he have a haircut? Did he wear it like a beatnik? His hair was all right. Did he wear glasses? No. What color were his eyes? Oh, I didn't pay attention. Is he as tall as you? Oh, he's taller than me, about like this. Did you see any identification on him? Yes, when this lady did this paper, she was going to do 2 papers. I was going to have one made for myself and how I met Martin and everything. So this lady, when she got ready to sign these papers, said you should have a court stenographer or something to do it. And I said I wanted the cheapest. She said, I will notarize it. And she said, show me your ID. And we showed our IDs and showed her, and she said it seemed like she was quite mad at the fact that we did not have a stenographer in to do it because it was cheaper. So then I can't get in trouble or anything today, eh? Not as long as you tell the truth. Well, let me tell you, she got mad when she finished and said, you should have had a stenographer. I said, lady, I want the cheapest. She said, this won't do you no good. You have to have a stenographer. I said, miss, I just want something that man said. And she got mad. And I said to Jim, I said, oh man, this is something. So I went outside, went to the bathroom, and I come back and I said to Jim, look, I'm going to take this to G. Ray Gill, the attorney, find out what is happening on this thing because I asked him to check it out. So I said, I will be right back. It wasn't 10 minutes later. But what, Jim comes charging over there and said, you're going to be arrested. And I said, arrested for what? What did I do? I figured, well, she called the district attorney, $25 for them papers. You shouldn't have left here with them papers. I said, what? $25 for typing up that paper? I called the lady on the phone. I said, miss, you can send me a bill. I didn't have $25. She said I owed her for that other paper she was fixing. Was this the girl at the Roosevelt Hotel? No, in the NBC building. Did she send you a bill? Yes. Did you say you were talking to Gene Davis and then this fellow approached you? No. I talked to this guy Davis. I walked in the bar. I was talking to him. Was that Wanda's 7 C's? Yes, Wanda something. When did you see Gene Davis? I don't know the date. It wasn't too long ago, was it? No. A week ago? Something like that. You went into his place of business? Yes. Who were you accompanied with? A guy by the name of Freddie Garcia and Jim Hagar. Those 2 people, yes. Who is Freddie Garcia? He's another guy right in front of Walgreens, walked up to me and said he knew some information about the DA. He's a 50-something-year-old guy. How did he know you? Standing on the corner talking. You told him who you were? No, just standing on the corner talking to Charlie Morrison, the policeman. He said, you're in the newspaper, aren't you? Mr. Alcock then asks, did you present any of these people to Gene Davis as your attorney? No. Did you present any of these people as your bodyguard? No. What was the reason for you going to see Gene Davis? I wanted to find out why I was being brought in. I walked in and I said, Mr. Davis, do you know me? He said, no. I said, I'm the one they subpoenaed. And I said, why do you think I'm brought into this? He said, I don't know. He said, you will know when you get to the grand jury. Is that the first time you ever saw Gene Davis? First time. You had never been in his place of business before? No. Any member of your family know Gene Davis? I don't know. Do you have a brother who frequents Gene Davis's place? No, I had a brother who walked around to find out information because I didn't want to go in there. That's the day members of the district attorney's office shoved him up against the wall and threatened to punch his teeth down his throat. What is his name? That's Freddie. Freddie was all excited, and he told Mr. Collette that 2 men, he was standing at the tie shop, and 2 men grabbed him and shoved him against the wall. One tall guy, and he said, aren't you Beckham? Freddie said, yes. And he said, where's the other guy? And Freddie said, I'm supposed to meet him or something. And he says, you all quit threatening people. Freddie said he wanted to see some identification. He pulled out some identification and shoved Freddie up against the wall. Where does Freddie live? With my mother and father. Here in town? In Metairie. If I were to tell you that one of your brothers has been going around Gene Davis' place for the last 9 months, would you say that? I don't know whether he does or not. If you ask Gene Davis if your brother or one of your brothers had told him anything about you, no. Did you discuss anything with that your brother may have said to Gene Davis at all during your conversation with Davis? None, no. Even the man made a remark. Are you going to drink? And I said, what do y'all want? Freddie Garcia said he would have a beer. A juror then asks, what made you look up Gene Davis? Who else would I look up? Why did you pick his name out? I did not mean to pick him out. This is another thing. I got this kid and said, can you tell me how I can reach this man Shaw? He said, yes, I know where he lives. I said I would like to talk to him and find out what's going on. Now, Mr. Beckham, you did not answer the question about how you got in touch with Gene Davis. That was just one of the names. What names? Well, see, I was standing in front of Walgreens. I know a lot of people around there. And one friend of mine came up and he says, man, they're getting a whole group now. They've got you, he said, laughing. I said, what is this? You don't know what's going on. I said, I wish I knew what was going on. He said, why don't you check around? And I said, where am I going to check around? He said, why don't you start with this man Davis? I said, why not? Who told you that? I know him for years, but not know his name. He's always at Walgreens. He's probably there right now. You have known him for years and do not know what he does or his name. He just hangs around Walgreens watching people go by. This Davis does not give any names. No, he did say he knew a hustler. I asked him to take me to this Mr. Shaw, and he drove me to a street. I think it was off Esplanade, and he went up to a door, and I stayed in the car, me and this Jim, and he knocked on this door. It looked like it was in an alley or something. I think it was on one end of Royal or something. I might be wrong. I suppose it was his house, but he come back to the car, and he said, well, he said, they can't see you right now, but would you come back to his attorney's office? Some attorney in the, I threw away the paper, even had the paper. Is there a Whitney National Bank building? Is his name Wegman? This was in the Whitney National Bank building. I just figured, oh, heck, and I threw it away. I had it all in my pockets. Mr. Beckham, let me get you to initial these and date them. These are 3 separate pages, and these are the papers you presented to us, being the affidavit that Richard Davis gave to you. Is that right? Yes, his name is Richards. David Richards. Now, would you initial them at the top and put the date on it? I take it, Mr. Beckham, you can leave this with our offices. Okay, so one thing I have to point out here is that the fucking district attorney, he's asking about Wegman, and he asks specifically, he's like, Mr. Beckham, let me get you to initial these and date them. These are 3 separate pages, and these are the papers presented to us as being the affidavit that Richard Davis gave to you. Is that right? Okay, so this is funny because the district attorney knows the guy's name is Richard Davis, or Ricardo Davis, he went by, even though he's a white guy. But Beckham doesn't know that he knows that his name is Richard Davis, and he's giving him the name of David Richards, right? He's giving him a fucking alias, a stupid fucking idiot, right? But Richard Davis, and the district attorney says his name right here, Richard Davis or Ricardo Davis. So fucking funny. God, Beckham is so stupid. David Richards. Now, would you initial them at the top and put today's date on it? I take it, Mr. Beckham, you can leave this with our offices. Your father has a copy? Yes. Juror, did you read this? Yes. How in the world do you think that could incriminate anybody? I don't know. Didn't you insinuate before Mr. Garrison left that this affidavit was almost exclusive proof that Mr. Garrison was homosexual? No. Well, why were you so reluctant to tell us what was in the affidavit? Well, because it did say, and I just did not want him to see the deal. What's in it? Anything that you wouldn't say in front of your mother? Well, I mean, the man's sitting right here in the room. I wasn't going to tell him. Tell him what? I don't see anything in here. I don't even see his name mentioned. Yes, it's mentioned. It says he knows a hustler, a male prostitute who does it for money and was intimate with Mr. Garrison, but he doesn't give the hustler's name. Mr. Burns asks, do you think an affidavit like this that does not give the name of a man who knows it, someone else knows it, an unnamed person, not Richards, but someone else, an unnamed person? I don't know. Well, what does the affidavit say? Does it say that Davis knew it or someone else who knows it? David Richards does not know of his own knowledge, does he? I don't know. There is some stuff he wouldn't tell me. What does the affidavit say? Does the affidavit tell us the name of the man who knows that Mr. Garrison is a homosexual? It doesn't, does he? Do you know now that something like that man can blow a man out of office? I don't know. You don't know? No. Well, do you think it will? I think it would. I think this guy must know it would, or he wouldn't say it. Do you think this piece of paper, vague as it is, without identifying the person who told it, would blow the district attorney out of his office? He can name the people, but he wouldn't want to do it. That is not what I asked you. I didn't ask you to name the people. I asked you, do you think that piece of paper would blow Jim Garrison out of office? No, I didn't say that. I didn't ask you if you said that. I asked you if you thought it. No. That's right. You don't know, and you don't think it will either, do you? I don't know. Well, you do think it will. What do you think? I don't know if it is true or if it isn't true. I didn't ask you if you think it's true. I don't know. Here we are, back to fucking who's on first again. But you did tell Jack Dempsey that it was going to blow him out of office, didn't you? No, I said they did not allow me an attorney. And I said, Mr. Dempsey, stick around. I have some affidavits, and I think it's going to blow a whole lot of stuff. Mr. Alcock says, I was standing right next to you, and I know exactly what you said. Standing next to me? Positively, standing next to you and followed you out of the courtroom, and I heard every word you said. In fact, I commented from outside in the hall when you said, I will give you something that will blow him right out of the saddle. I don't know exactly what I said. I said something to that effect, but I can't say what it was. You can ask him. Mr. Burns asks, is it not really your thought that this will blow him out of the saddle? I don't know. I just don't know. I know you don't know, but you don't think it will either, did you? I don't know. In other words, you were lying to Mr. Dempsey when you told him it would blow Mr. Garrison out of the saddle because you don't believe it to be a fact. I said, I don't know what I said. Mr. Scambria then says, Mr. Beckham, let's get back to the year 1960, which, if I understand your testimony correct, is the first time you met Jack Martin. Is that correct? Yes. And you were approximately 17 years old 8 years ago. Something like that. Now, in your testimony, you mentioned the name of Jack Martin, who, in your own words, you followed around or ran around with a great deal. Now, through Jack Martin, did you have occasion to go to Guy Bannister's office at 544 Camp Street in the Newman building across the street from the old post office building? Right. And you had occasion to meet Guy Bannister? Yes. Later on, your association with Guy Bannister became even bigger and more frequent in your association with Jack Martin. No, not really. At any rate, you became quite friendly with Guy Bannister. I was friendly with him, yes. And during those times, you also mentioned that you had occasion to meet a person by the name of Grady Durham. Is that correct? Yes. Will you tell us how this came about and your association with Grady Durham and what it was? Well, I was doing shows and stuff, and I was going out and doing local dances and stuff. So Jack Martin, I asked him how I could go about getting some records promoted, and he said, make your own records. And so my dad hired a van, paid a recording studio, and then we went up to see a record company to have everything legal, and he went up to see this attorney, so we went up and saw Grady Durham. I don't know what transpired, but Dad, how did the name Grady Durham come up? Jack brought it up. Jack recommended Grady Durham. Yes. He said he was a cousin of Jimmy Davis and that he had a lot of connections, so how often do you see Grady Durham? I don't know, a bunch of times. What was your relationship with Grady Durham? Just attorney-client relationship? Yes. Did you ever talk about anything besides your record promotion? That's all. Did he ever handle any legal problems for you? No, not that I know of. Was it also during this time you happened to meet David Ferry? Sometime. I don't know how it fits in, but sometime during this time I met him. You met him in Guy Bannister's office or G. Ray Gill's office? G. Ray Gill's office. Where was his office at the time? I think it was in the Père Marquette building. Did you ever have occasion to see David Ferry anywhere else or at any other time? No, it would be too obvious to see that man. In connection with Guy Bannister and David Ferry and Grady Durham in Mr. Bannister's office at 544 Camp Street, did you have occasion to meet a person by the name of Bill Dalzell? I don't know. I saw people in his office, but I never really met anybody. Or never really met nobody. This is Bill Dalzell showing picture. Look at the person closely and let me see if his face looks familiar. I don't know where. Have you seen him or haven't you? Seems like I have, but I don't know where. The face looks familiar to you. Looks like that guy in back. What guy? That guy who's the guy that runs those, and then something's redacted, because he's about that guy's age. You mean Eugene Davis? No, the guy in front. The guy who runs Mancuso's Cafe. Yes. If I were to tell you that Bill Dalzell was a very close friend to Guy Bannister, Jack Martin, and Grady Durham, what would you say to that? I don't know. You would not know of any relationship like that? No, Jack had one night he went to see somebody waiting for him. Well, does the face look familiar to you or not? The face looks familiar, but you can't place it. Is that correct? Right. Is this the Sergio Arcacha that you mentioned before? Yes. Have you ever seen this person before? Not that I know of. Sergio Arcacha is the person you mentioned before as being involved in... this guy looks like he's younger here. He probably is. The picture was taken a few years ago. Now, would you tell us what relationship you had with Sergio Arcacha as a result of your acquaintance with Guy Bannister? I think I went out to his house with somebody. I don't know how, and I met... it was this man's house. Was it on the lakefront? Yes. Was it around 60 or 61? Gosh, I don't know. Was it before or after the Bay of Pigs? I don't know. When was the Bay of Pigs? 61. Oh, this was before all that. Because they were trying to raise money or something. They were talking about CIA training troops at Algiers naval station. Who was telling you all this? Sergio. Sergio was telling you that the CIA was training troops at the Algiers naval station. Yes, sir. In your acquaintance with Guy Bannister and Grady Durham, David Ferry, that one time you met him, did you ever have occasion to meet a Joseph Moore? If you'll recall, Joseph Moore is the heavyset Latino with the pockmarked face, a.k.a. Lawrence Howard, who went to Bolton Ford. I've come to believe that he went there with Kerry Thornley now, not with William Seymour, because of the relationships that I've determined existed between Kerry Thornley and, quote-unquote, Leopoldo, who was Lawrence Howard. I don't know, but do you have a picture of him? No, but Joseph Moore is about 5'10", ex-Marine, weighs about 150, has light brown hair, almost blonde. Okay, so once again, it was clearly Lawrence Howard inside the Bolton Ford using the name Joseph Moore. But Joseph Moore is clearly a name that is now connected to another person. So they're using a real name as an alias. Typical alias game shit. Ergo, see if you can't find anything on Joseph Moore. Search New Orleans in this time frame. See what we can come up with. Because he's probably what I'm figuring out is he's probably just another fucking patsy. If they're using a fake name of a real guy to go buy trucks along with Lee Harvey Oswald, they're probably setting this guy up as another patsy. So that sounds like Joe Newborough. Hung around with Martin a lot, but he's gained a lot of weight now. Is he still in town? Yes, he's working for the state on cement deals, I heard. How do you spell his name? Joseph? I don't know. Does Joseph Moore ring a bell? No. Did you ever have occasion to hear of an organization, a corporation by the name of Friends of Democratic Cuba? No. In all your dealing with Guy Bannister, Jack Martin, and Grady Durham, and Sergio Arcacha Smith, you've never heard of the corporation, the Friends of Democratic Cuba, mentioned at all, in any connection. There was something, what was it, making a deal. I think it was the young guy or the old guy. I'm pretty sure they had a coin. They had some made. It named some society on it. They gave out these coins to members. The members had to pay some money or something. I don't know what society it was, though. Sounds like it was something like Revolutionary Forces or something like that. It's that type of name. What about the Cuban Revolutionary Front? Does that ring a bell? That could have been the name. If I were to tell you that these people who you were in constant contact with during the time period, during the period of time, mainly Mr. Guy Bannister, Mr. Grady Durham, Mr. Jack Martin, Mr. Durham's wife, June Durham, formed this particular corporation. June was the daughter. Okay, the daughter then. They formed this corporation. Would that ring a bell? No, but this guy mysteriously disappeared later or something. What guy? Grady Durham. We went to his house to get the records. He kept them all at his house, and we went to get them. He lives on Jefferson Avenue. This was the street, and he mysteriously left town, and his daughter was caught stealing money out of the deal. I remember her name, June, and she had long, skinny legs. I forget how old she was. She was acting as his secretary. Was she in her teens? No, I guess she was in and out of them at the same time. She was about 19. I'm going to read Article 3 of this corporation charter and see if it refreshes your memory as to any type of activity you may have had with these certain people. It reads, quote, "The corporation herein organized shall be operated exclusively for the following purposes: to enlighten the people of the United States and the free world of the evils and perils of the communist dictatorship in Cuba, to promote the cause of freedom from communist tyranny in Cuba, to assist Cuban refugees, those in exile, and other Cuban patriots, to regroup and organize for the purpose of opposing communism in Cuba, to solicit for and obtain funds and contributions for these purposes, and for the support of the Democratic Revolutionary Front, and to assist that organization in its aims and purposes of opposing communism in Cuba, to promote trade and commerce between the United States of America, to defray all necessary expenses, and to buy, sell, and lease all necessary properties which may be necessary in all licenses, permits, exemptions which may be necessary for conformity for the objectives stated herein, to acquire and operate public information media if required, and to do generally all things necessary to reach these objectives set forth herein." Does any of this ring a bell? No. Does the purpose of this corporation fit with the activities you may have performed with some of the Cuban people, Sergio Arcacha and Bannister? No, not that I know of. He just asked if I wanted to help. They were wanting a building, too. That's another thing. And I went up to see a man by the name of Humphrey J. Balter. Something like that. Somebody here in town. And I walked in, and the guy pulled up again and said, don't move. So I forgot about speaking to the man. You went to see Colonel Balter about getting a building for these people to work out of. I walked up and said, Mr. Balter, I would like to talk to you about obtaining places for offices. And he said, fine, come up and see me. I'll be willing to talk to you. And if I'm not here myself, my secretary. So I walked in the door, had an old antique-looking office in this building, and he was sitting there at a desk, and I walked up and said, how do you do, sir? I'd like to speak to you about some offices concerning some Cuban people. And he says, don't move. Back away. It shocked me. I thought the man was nuts. Do you know the address of the Balter building? No, I don't remember going there. No, I remember going there, and he started telling me stuff. Half my building is empty and all this sorts of stuff. What would you say if I told you Friends of Democratic Cuba started in the Balter building? Well, now, Mr. Martin told me about the Balter building and said, go see Mr. Balter. I did not know the guy existed. I had never seen him. What would you say if I told you they started out in that building? Then they started out after I left. That man didn't even want to talk. He was an old man with a double-breasted suit and all. What else did you do to help these Cuban people? Oh, I told them they could get some tin cans. I told them that was the best idea. Did you make any attempt to help them get the tin cans? No. Do you know of any collection they made on Canal Street? No. Another thing I remember is this guy had this coin, and he said he sold it or gave it out to places. So Sergio told you these Cuban people were working or had the support of the Central Intelligence Agency. He said the Central Intelligence Agency was training them in the Algiers naval station. Did he say how much help the Central Intelligence Agency might have been giving these people? No. Did he tell you that the CIA was supporting the anti-Castro forces in New Orleans? No. But this guy I met on the street told me, did I know that Clay Shaw? This is what he had said. Now let me get it right. He said, did you know that Clay Shaw, there was a C. Shaw in Italy, and that Italy ran out for being a front for the CIA? That's what he said. That's what the guy told me a few days ago. Hey, that's pretty fucking relevant in 1968, because nobody really fucking knew that. This is where CMC and Permindex come into it. And Clay Shaw. So let me reread this paragraph. No, but this guy I met on the street told me that I didn't know Clay Shaw. This is what he said. Now, let me get it right. He said, did you know Clay Shaw? There was a C. Shaw in Italy. That Italy ran out for being a front for the CIA. That's what he said. That's what the guy told me a few days ago. Very astute, Mr. Beckham. Probably the only honest thing he ever said. What else did you do in connection with these Cuban people? That's it. Did you ever solicit money to buy arms for these people? No, you kidding? No. Did you ever ask anybody to help obtain arms for the Cuban people? No. Ammunition? No. What I did do, the fact that I told him I would help him in every way I could, and I typed up a little deal for him brochure asking people to help. To your knowledge, did Mr. Bannister help these people? I don't know if he knew the people. I will be honest with you. It seems to me that the young guy mentioned Bannister's name, but I never saw him in the office. Do you know Martin McAuliffe? You have a picture of him? No. Martin McAuliffe. The name sounds McAuliffe. Is there an attorney named McAuliffe? Sounds familiar. What year did you have the box in the post office across the street from Mr. Bannister? I don't really know. Was that around this time? 60, 61, 62? I could check on it. I don't really know. You have no idea? No, I really don't. Seems like forever ago. You were not working at the time, right? No, I was living at home. Would you give us the purpose of your having a box at the post office on Lafayette Street? I had some cards made, business cards, Tommy Beckham Evangelist or something, so I got a post office box. It cost me not more than $2 or $3. Year or month. This was on a 3 months, I think. And the guy claimed there was different sizes and all this stuff. And you held the post office box for 2 years. I don't know how long I held it. I know I held it at least 3 months because I paid 3 months at least. Probably longer than that, but at least 3 months. I know that to be a fact. Do you know a person by the name of David Lewis? Yes. In what relationship? I met him through Martin. When? I don't really know. Around the same time, 61, 62? He was having some trouble with a wife or a little baby or something, or had a baby. That's what it was, and he was always, didn't have nothing, no money. He would come in Thompson's and didn't have no money. How many times did you have the occasion to meet David Lewis? Oh, a bunch of times. He run around with a deal from a guy in Canada, a Private Investigators Association. The same thing, I had one of the cards too. It was a guy by the name of Cecil Hughley or something like that in Canada that Jack contacted me and got me a certificate. And everything he got, this guy won too. You know, this David Lewis, he got him one too. He would run around and act like he was a detective. So he had one, I had one. It was fucking hilarious with these fake certificates. Did you ever go into any business with David Lewis? No. In other words, would you say your relationship with David Lewis was just a casual hello, goodbye whenever you would see him? No, he would always stop me. He would make you feel bad, like you were eating something. He would sit there and say, do you care for something? And he would say no, and finally he would take something. Did you ever enter into a conversation about the Cuban group with David Lewis? I don't think I knew David Lewis then, no. Did you ever ask David Lewis to help you get money for the Cuban group? I don't think I knew David Lewis during that time. I knew him, but see, this was a short period of time. Did you ever make the statement to David Lewis that you were trying to get money, guns, and or ammunition to help the Cuban groups? No. Did you ever ask David Lewis to help you in any attempt to get guns or ammunition for the Cuban group? No, I don't even remember what this guy and I ever talked about. Did you ever tell David Lewis or anyone that you were CIA or in some way working with the CIA? No. Or in any connection with them? No. It is your statement that you never told anyone you were CIA, and you never told anyone you were working directly or indirectly with the CIA. No. I was asked on a TV show by a guy by the name of Alec Gifford 2 nights ago. He said, you knew Mr. Bannister was something to do with the CIA or something, and I said, I don't know. He says, you were ever employed by him? And I said, oh God, what am I going to do? So the state attorney said, just say you don't know. I said, I don't know. I really don't know, honestly. In other words, you don't know if you were ever working for the CIA. I don't think I ever was. I never got no money then. Did Guy Bannister ever tell you that he was CIA? No, he said he was a special investigator that FBI even had in his phone book, the former special investigator, former assistant chief of police. But he never did tell you that he was some way connected with the CIA. No, but he had a lot of business from federal men, FBI men. Do you remember any of their names? No, they would just walk in, and on occasion a guy walked in and said FBI investigator to the lady, and she said, just 1 minute, sir, you know. Did you ever have occasion to meet an FBI agent by the name of Regis Kennedy? No, but I met one who was friends of Jack's, a blonde-headed guy. Blonde hair or white? I'm pretty sure it was blonde. Bushy hair or straight? No, his hair was combed back and looked real manly. Combed his hair real nice and clean, neatly. FBI man? Yes, he did. He said FBI. Did you ever have occasion to meet a guy named Logan, CIA? No. Have you got a picture of him? So to your knowledge, you've never met Agent Kennedy right here. You've never had an occasion to meet him or see him in Guy Bannister's office or with David Ferry. No, I might have, but I don't think so. In other words, it's your statement that if Mr. Bannister was working with the CIA or performing some function or duty for the CIA that you did not know of it. No. And he never told you that he did. No. And to your knowledge, you have never worked for the CIA either directly or indirectly. No. Did you ever tell David Lewis that you were CIA? Are you kidding? No. Can I say something? This is what is strange. The other day I was up in Walgreens. I was using the phone and this guy comes up and he said, hi, Tommy. I turn around and it was Dave Lewis. And he was putting the money in to make a phone call. So I was talking to him. So I said, so he talked on the phone and he hung up and said, what you doing? And I said, if anybody knows, you would know. The district attorney got me back here for an investigation. He says, Tommy, I'm just the guy who can help you. I said, oh, yeah. What can you do? Pay me back money I've lent you and things? And he said, hey, kept his hands in his pocket all the time, trench coat type thing. So I went downstairs. I said, well, I'll see you later, Dave. And I stood around talking to this Freddie, this Jim Hogger, my brother Bill, and a guy in the criminal sheriff's office. Can't think of his name, but my brother's got his name. And I said, let's go have some coffee. So we went down the street to Meal a Minute. So my brother said, Meal a Minute ain't there no more. It's called some other name like Magnolia or something. Mayflower. Yes, Mayflower. So we go there. It's on the corner of Canal. And we go in the back and we're sitting there at a big, long table. What do you think? Dave is sitting over there and he says, Tommy, I can get you credentials to hang Jack Martin. And I said, don't do me no favors. I said, I don't need no favors right in front of these men. You can ask them. He says, Tommy, I'm not kidding you. He says, you're in a frame. And I said, what do you mean? He said, Tommy, I'm telling you. He said, Jack did me dirty. He ran out on his wife. And he said, I'm living at their house. And I said, what do you mean? A man leaves his wife and leaves you in his house? That don't make no sense. He says, Tommy, look, I can help you. He said, I like you. You did me favors. And I said, Dave, I ain't never did you no favors. You know that. So why should you do me any favors? So I kept sitting there, and Freddie said, why don't you leave the man alone? The man told you he don't want no favors or information from you. He don't need it. So they brought us all the coffee. So I got up and went to the bathroom. And while I was there, I come out and Dave Lewis was on the phone up there. And he said, come here, I want to talk to you. And I said, look, Dave, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to know nothing when I go in there. And that settles it. And he said, listen to me, Tommy, please come on out with me. I'm working at a place called New University. It's a school, he said. And he handed me a piece of paper and he said, look, come on out to the house. I got something. I forget how he said it, but he said, come on out to Jack's house. And I said, man, look, I don't want anything to do with Jack Martin. I don't want anything to do with any of these people. I said, I'm going to wait and go to on the advice of my attorney. So Dave Lewis come downstairs and said, Tommy, will you give me a ride home? I said, Dave, look, please, if you don't have any money. Then I felt that I would make the poor guy look like a fool in front of these people. So I said, okay, Dave, I'll give you a ride home. We got in the car. I did not drive him home, though. I dropped him off across from K&B Drugstore. I'm going to read a list of names to you. Oh, so you know something else that happened? Right after that day, the next day, I called Roswell Thompson, and Roswell said, Tommy, Jack Martin's going to kill you for threatening his life and the life of his baby. And I said, what are you talking about? And I said, okay, let me make a phone call. Well, Jack Martin sent a telegram to my mother's house, even before I came here asking that my mother call him. My mother never did return the call. She still has his telegram. He said, urgent that you call me. My mother still have his telegram. She never called him with his phone number on it. I called my mother and said, what is Jack Martin's phone number? And she gave it to me, and the line was busy, so I told the operator it was an emergency and told her to put the call through, and I heard Jack Martin himself on the other line. He said to the operator, the emergency can wait. So I waited about 20 minutes, and I called his house back, and I don't get Jack, I get Lewis. I said, Dave, I want to speak to Jack. He says, he's not here. He's on his way to Biloxi or Gulfport or something, going to be at the Ryan or Reed or some hotel. I said, come on, Dave, put him on the phone, or I'm going to get my car and come over there and tell all this baloney you told me. And he never did. He told me he was at some hotel. He said, wait and call him at this hotel. Did you call the hotel? Yes, I waited an hour and a half and called Jack Martin at this hotel. The guy tells me he gave him room number 207, 206, something like that. And the guy says, well, there is no Jack Martin here. We got a Martin, but no Jack Martin. So I thought, that's just something. I lose my money. So I call him back and I said, now look, Dave, put Jack Martin on the telephone. I said, because I'm going to tell him all this baloney you've been telling me. So he says, I'm telling you. So that was the last of it. Okay, now let me read this list of names and you tell me you know these people or not. And if so, give me what connection you know them in. We have already gone into Guy Bannister, okay? And the Mancuso Cafe, have you ever been in there? Yes. How many times? Oh, plenty of times. Coffee and stuff. You've been there quite a bit. Yes. Jack Martin, we've already gone into Jack Martin. Do you know another party by the name of Jack Martin? Ooh. This question gives me tingles. This question gives me the tingles. Jack Martin. We've already gone into Jack Martin. Do you know another party by the name of Jack Martin? I know Joe Martin. No, this is a Jack Martin. No. Have you ever been to Goldana, Louisiana? No. Where? Goldana. I went to a lot of small towns, but that name doesn't sound right. You know Carlos Quiroga? I don't know. Doesn't ring a bell. Have you ever been to the Cats and Jammer bar? No, I don't go to bars. Do you know Ricardo Davis? The name Ricardo stands out. What about Guy Johnson? No. If you get me pictures, I might be able to know them people. You never had occasion to meet an attorney by the name of Guy Johnson? I might have. I don't know. What about Jessica Luck? Oh, that's Kerry Thornley's girlfriend. Ooh, that's Kerry Thornley's girlfriend. I don't know. Something else while I think of it. Jack Martin said something about was a dirty deal, what Grady did my dad, that they had gotten Grady for stealing income. Like someone will make a settlement with you, say in an insurance deal, and the attorney gets the check. Then about 3 or 4 months later, Jack said to me, I said, wonder where Grady is. And he says, well, everybody's looking for him, the FBI and all, but he said, I know where he is. He said he knew exactly where Grady Durham could be reached. What is the significance of that? Well, I just thought about it. What about Jeff Bitterson? I don't know. Bill Young? No. Virginia Johnson? No. Jack Spencer? No. Clay Shaw? Do I know him? Have you ever met him? No. Leighton Martins? No. Dr. Mary Sherman? No. Dr. Martin Palmer? No. Dr. Keddy of Covington? No. Kent Courtney? Sounds like a newspaper man, is he? No, he's not a newsman. He has a publishing firm and a printing company. Sounds familiar, real familiar. So then we can rest assured Kent Courtney was one of the handlers of Thomas Beckham, too, for sure. Louis P. Davis. That's not the other guy who has the bar? No. No, I don't know him. Tommy Baumler? No. Dr. Gustav von Eyre? No. Alfred Cohen? No. I met this Aaron Cohn. You met him? I thought you said you talked to him on the phone and he wouldn't talk to you. Well, I met him before, not this time. I met him a long time ago, a big guy. Harold de Montfort? No. Ernesto Rodriguez? Sounds familiar, but I don't think I know him. Ross Buckley? No. Reverend Edward Hoving? No. John C. Martin? No. John Alice? No. Jesse Core? No. Frank Bartz? No. Manuel Gill? No. Louis Rebel? No. Yes. Where'd you meet him? That guy, I met him at the Pere Marquette building in a restaurant. Where you had gone with Sergio Arcacha. Right. Gordon Neville, you say you've never met? No. Jose Casas Riega? No. Nestor Marquis Diaz? No. Now, a lot of them Spanish people used to hang out at the drugstore, and Jack used to talk to them at the table up in Walgreens, but I never knew, Did you ever meet a guy named Don Duty? No. Have you ever been to Mexico City? No. Alvin Bobouf? No. Melvin Coffey? No. Margaret Tate? No. Dean Andrews? No. Philip Geraci? No. Dan Blaylock? No. Kenneth Leckie? No. John Dote? No. Bootsy Gay? No. Al Clark? No. Dave Chandler? No. Ape Ames? No. Roger Loving? No. Gregory Hill? No. Melvin Sealing? No. Andrew Blackman? No. Harold Sandoz? No. Frank Karachi? No. Gene Davis? Well, we went into him. First time and the only time. Harold Tannenbaum? No. Victor Latham? No. May I say something? I said something to Mr. Eugene Davis. I said, you look pretty familiar. I said, I've seen you somewhere before, and he said, I've been around a lot. His face did look familiar. Joe LeBlanco? No. Joseph Peterson? No. Breck Wall? No. Warren Reynolds? No. Daryl Garner? No. Jack Ruby? No. That's the guy, no. George Senator? No. Ralph Paul? No. Gordon McClendon? No. Miguel Torres? No. Ricardo Torres? No. Emmanuel Torres? No. Emmanuel Gonzalez? No. Emilio Santana? No. Roland Masferrer? No. Luis Ferdinand Gonzalez? No. Have you ever been to the Riders Club? No. Have you ever been to the Bourbon House? No. Have you ever been to the Beckley Club? No. What about Wanda's Seven Seas? Yeah, that one time. Have you ever been to the Carousel Club in Texas? No. In Dallas, Texas? No, I've been to the Carousel Club in Baton Rouge, but not in Dallas. No. Have you ever been to Irving, Texas? No. Did you ever go to Hammond, Louisiana? Yes, did a show there. Where? The school there in Hammond. SLC, Southeastern? High schools. I played the high schools in the Amite and them little towns. How many times have you been to Hammond? I went through a half a dozen times when I was playing in Jackson and was going around through Independence, Hammond, and stuff like that. Did you ever have occasion to meet anybody related to Clay Shaw in Hammond? No. Did you ever meet Clay Shaw in Hammond? No. What years were you going to Hammond? I had to be going to Hammond in 63, 64, something like that. About what time in 63? I don't know. Was it before the assassination or after? I was home during the assassination in a trailer park, so it had to be right after. Right after the assassination? Yes. Did you go to Hammond in 64 also? I think I did. Have you ever been to Oak Cliff in Dallas? No. Do you know a person by the name of Paul Rothmall? No. How about Al Bogard? No. Did you ever have occasion to meet Lee Harvey Oswald? No, never. Did you ever have occasion to meet Marina Oswald? I saw her here. She was sitting outside one day. That's the only time. Did you know Augustine Gittart? No. Alberto Fowler? No. You've already gone into G. Ray Gill, right? Right, I know Mr. Gill and that young Gill. Ever meet a person named Nelson Delgado? No. Ever meet a person named Dejodovich? No. Sherman Cooley? No. John Rene Heindel? No. Hank Killams? No, sir. Tommy Cox? No, sir. Bruce Ray Collins? No, sir. Lester Logue? No, sir. Jack Lawrence? No. Joseph Cody? No. Harold Isaacs? No. Chuck Isaacs? No. Buell Wesley Frazier? No. Ruth Payne? No. Michael Payne? Lester Logue? No. Larry Schmidt? Robert Surrey? No. William Duff? George de Mohrenschildt? No. Edward S. Butler? William Dalzell? The Friends of Democratic Cuba? We've already gone into that, right? Right? And so what was your answer to that, Friends of Democratic Cuba? Is you're not familiar? Is that correct? It might have been at one time. It was on the coin, but I don't know the name of the coin exactly. Charles White? No. William Klein? No. Frank Klein, I know. Do you know a person by the name of Baragona? No. Lauren Hall? No, that's no. Lawrence Howard? No. Gerald Patrick Hemming? No. Billy Seymour? Martin Abelow? No. Arnold Lewis Kessler? No. Fred Lee Croman? No. Have you ever been to the Hotel del Comercio in Mexico City? I've never been to Mexico City. Have you ever been to a place called Hotel Marlin? No. Do you know an Alfred Bowen? No. John Howard Bowen? No. Do you know a Jack Helm? No. Jules Rico Kimball? No. Reverend O.B. Graham? No. Bishop Hyde? No. Dr. Fred Swartz? No. Reverend Leslie Swift? Billy James Hargan or Colonel Gale? No. Richard Nagel? John Hawke? Major Bloomfield from Montreal, Canada? No. Major Bloomfield? No. Arnold Lewis Kessler? No. Sylvia Durand? No, I think it was Jack or one of the other guys who said something about a colonel in an advisory capacity. Something to do with either Jack or one of them was going to get me a certificate. Any more questions? A juror asked, do you think Jack Martin could throw any light on the subject? I think so. Where is Jack Martin? He's in town, but you better set aside about 4 days. Now, Mr. Beckham, let me tell you something. When you leave this room, you don't reveal anything you said in here, any questions that people ask you, any pictures that were shown to you. Do you understand that? You don't mention it to anyone. That means your family or anybody. You don't mention anything about this affidavit, and you certainly don't go back and tell this man that we have this affidavit. Do you understand that? No, I won't. Because if you do, because I told him I'm not going to give it to nobody. Because if you do mention it to anyone, you're in a contempt of a grand jury and in contempt of court. Do you understand? Yes. You ought to make note of that. This fellow calls himself Marcello instead of Richards. All right, fine. Okay, Mr. Beckham. And then it is signed off on by Maureen B. Teal. Interesting. Interesting stuff, right? So we've got a slew of new names that we can go down the list and attempt to cross off. We've established pretty firmly that his relationships in New Orleans were very solid with Jack Martin and with Guy Bannister and Roswell Thompson. Not so much David Lewis, but yes to Grady Durham. These are all names that have popped up in Kennedy research before, but honestly, they're seeming like they're on the outskirts, not really having much to do with much. Probably working CIA, other operations at the time that this is going down, so. But, all right. That's going to do it for today. We're going to be back tomorrow with more David fucking, what's the fuck's his name? David Beckham, is that his name? Thomas Beckham. David Beckham's like a soccer player or some shit, right? Fuck. Thomas Beckham is a scumbag. He's a liar, and we're going to go into all that shit tomorrow, because it's going to be fucking fun. So if you haven't bought the book, go buy the fucking book, okay? You didn't listen to this goddamn podcast for a whole fucking hour not to be interested in this subject, so go buy the fucking book, okay? That's going to do it, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.